New York City Transit Police conduct a roundup of minor law violators, marijuana users, and fare jumpers. A routine task with the usual risks for those who patrol the nation's toughest subway.
Basically, we work alone, and something happens. One of these kids jumps you. It takes a while to get some help. You're there by yourself, and carry things like this. It makes it quite dangerous.
Of all the arrests this year, none has received as much public attention, though, as that of Michael Stewart, a young graffiti artist. On September 15th, 25-year-old Michael Stewart was arrested for scrawling on the wall of a subway station at 3 in the morning. 30 minutes later, Stewart lay in a deep coma at Bellevue Hospital's emergency room. What happened in those 30 minutes is the subject of an ongoing controversy. Stewart never regained consciousness. 13 days after his arrest, Michael Stewart was dead. Officers from the day shift, 4th District, New York Transit Police. 5 police officers from another shift are reported to have been present when Stewart was taken into custody.
The average person doesn't deal with the type of pressures we deal with. The odds are that you're going to come across X amount of psychos. You're going to come across X amount of situations each day. And you have to make snap decisions. The average person doesn't have to do that. This isn't a bank teller job. You know, if some guy is right now behind me and starts firing behind me, I mean, everybody else has the option to get the hell out of here.
Approximately about 3 years ago, an officer was working by himself on a midnight tour, 2nd Avenue on the F train. And he went to wake up a person that was sleeping on a bench. This person jumped up and overpowered him, took his nightstick, and started beating the officer about the head, face. He'll never be able to work again as a police officer. This city is so great in numbers that you can never know who you're going to deal with next. You could think you're dealing with a person that's a happy-go-lucky guy, and you walk up to him, he could be the meanest guy in the world.
Standing out here by yourself is a whole different game. So you get somewhat paranoid after a while, but you have to control your own paranoia and your fears.
Michael Stewart, the son of a retired schoolteacher and transit worker, was part of the Lower East Side new wave art scene in New York, an artist, model, and avid dancer who appeared in a music video.
Michael was not this sort of graffiti artist. I mean, he didn't paint trains or do big murals like this. He just once in a while left his tag on a wall. And Michael was not from the ghetto, and he was not a criminal or a tough guy. He didn't even know how to fight, you know, he wasn't from the street. He was just doing graffiti because it was so popular in the art world, and he really had ambitions to make it as an artist.
He was probably killed for signing his name like this, R-A-S. He only got to the S. You're supposed to get a ticket for writing graffiti. You're not even supposed to get arrested with handcuffs. Why did they do that?
For 8 months, Stewart supported his artistic ambitions by working as a busboy at the Pyramid Club.
As you can see, we're very busy here, and the work is not easy. We have to put up with a lot from our customers and everything, and you know, Michael never got riled by any of this, never had a confrontation with a customer that I ever knew of, and it's just impossible for me to believe that he would have, you know, stood up to any policeman or, you know, caused any sort of trouble.
I let him go because he was not aggressive enough with the people. He wouldn't get through the crowds to do his work. The day I fired him, he wasn't hostile with me, he wept.
Stewart returned to the Pyramid Club the night of the incident to visit with a friend, Patricia Pichet. They left the club together in the early morning hours.
He was very calm, Very sweet, lots of smiles. He seemed to be real happy. Right here, I dropped him off. I kissed him goodbye, I said, I'll see you tomorrow. He walked down the stairs, he waved to me. And that was the last that I saw of him. That was the last that anyone saw of him.
But there were others, the arresting officers and an eyewitness sitting inside a nearby restaurant, who says he saw Stewart and an officer emerge from the subway.
What I saw was that this cop grabbed Michael Stewart by surprise and threw him down in the concrete cement floor with handcuffs on the prisoner. And you beat the guy, that's cowardness. That's an act of cowardness. They're gonna throw me to the wolves, and I say if I'm gonna go down, I'm going down with honors. I perform my duty to the letter, the way a police officer trained me. And I'm proud of this shield, and I'm not gonna disgrace this shield or either my uniform or New York City Police. They lied to the public, but I set the story straight.
Not long after talking with CNN, auxiliary police officer Robert Rodriguez resigned from the force. Tomorrow, medical evidence and the question of how Michael Stewart died.
Michael Stewart, he was handcuffed and he had his head up high with honors, this guy. He had no shame after all that he'd been through. And he was not fighting back at all, so they roughed this guy very bad. His constitutional right was violated. This guy is an American, and you don't sweep Americans under the rug.
30 minutes after his arrest, Stewart was brought to Bellevue Hospital in a coma, beginning a series of events that would do little to answer how or what happened.
I saw him when he first came to the triage desk in Bellevue Emergency. He was in company of 2 transit police officers. His hands was cuffed behind his back and his feet were cuffed together. He was laying face down on the stretcher with his nose and face pressed down in the stretcher padding. The taller of the 2 police officers said to me that I arrested this guy and he went berserk.
I have seen beatings. I mean, I have seen evidence of beatings, I should say. I've seen prisoners that were beaten over the head and in various parts of their body. I've never seen anything as severe as this. I've never seen someone who was apparently beaten to death as this person was.
Transit officials have denied charges from minority community leaders that what happened to Stewart, a black, was the latest example of police brutality. Deputy Inspector Charles Mills, although not involved in the case, reflects the mood of others in the department.
You know, being a policeman don't make you right in your actions. If you're wrong, they take appropriate action. If you're right, they back you 100%. This particular case, I think the department is backing the officer involved, since there's been no allegations by the criminal justice system of wrongdoing. You know, the officer is working, every day. It's not. There's been no disciplinary action taken on him whatsoever. There's been no charges made against him.
According to published accounts, transit police claim Stewart's injuries came when he fell down subway station steps while fleeing the arresting officer. They also say he was restrained after becoming violent. Lawyers for the Stewart family say Michael was beaten and strangled in what's known as a chokehold.
I don't see how the injuries that Michael Stewart sustained, apparently from what we saw, could have resulted from a fall. The pattern of the injuries was such that it was bilateral. It was on both sides of his body. It was on both sides of his head. I think the cause of death could very well be strangulation.
I've seen several beatings, as I've said, of prisoners. And it goes on all the time, and nobody investigates or seems to do anything about it. But I feel that a beating that resulted in death should actually be made public, and something should be done about it.
Stewart's parents hired Dr. Robert Wolf, who claims when he first arrived at the hospital, he was turned away for failure to present his New York medical license, even though, he says, prior arrangements had been made.
Clearly, I had the feeling that they were attempting to delay my examination of the patient. This is the diploma, and I want you clearly to see this thing. You see this? This is what they made me yank off the wall. This has never, ever happened to me before, and to my knowledge, has never happened to any other physician before in this city. The thought might have been that the longer I was forbidden from actually examining Mr. Michael Stewart while he was alive might enhance the chance that I would not be able to do so at all.
Despite efforts to save his life, Michael Stewart died 13 days after his arrest. An autopsy was performed by New York City Chief Medical Examiner Dr. Elliot Gross, who shortly thereafter announced his preliminary findings.
The cause of death is cardiac arrest with survival for 13 days, bronchopneumonia, pending further study. The autopsy disclosed findings consistent with the hospital course of coma following a cardiac arrest. While there was evidence of healing injuries on the body, the autopsy demonstrated no evidence of physical injury resulting or contributing to death. Further tests, including examination of the brain and spinal cord and microscopic tests, will be performed.
A day later, Dr. Gross, without notifying the family or the representatives of the family, without obtaining consent for this mutilating procedure from the family or the family's legal representatives, himself did remove both eyes. It could have been done to remove the evidence of the petechial hemorrhages in the eyes. This points to the fact that death was caused by compression, strangulation, or choking.
A transit police spokesman said the coroner's findings cleared the officers involved.
Transit Police Department is very relieved that the report of the medical examiner has cleared the air of these very serious allegations of police brutality.
Over 4 weeks later, Dr. Gross issued his final report.
The cause of death is a physical injury to the spinal cord. Cardiac arrest with survival for 13 days, ischemic cerebral necrosis, bronchopneumonia. The ischemic cerebral necrosis refers to the condition of the brain resulting from absence of oxygen following cardiac arrest.
Although Gross's report acknowledged Stewart died as the result of a trauma, apparently his conclusions do not support the likelihood of a stranglehold.
But all of this is not true.
Why is that?
It's not true because the facts do not support that. There is not one bit of medical evidence to support that conclusion of Dr. Gross. All medical teaching supports only one sequence of events, and that is that Michael Stewart had brain damage and brain death caused by compression of the neck.
Dr. John Grauerholtz, himself a medical examiner, was present at the autopsy at the request of Stewart's parents.
There is other evidence of injury which would relate to compression of the neck. All right? And the real question in this case is, what would cause this man to go unconscious and to have his heart stop?
The death of Michael Stewart came just before congressional hearings in New York on allegations of police brutality, hearings which Mayor Tkach has denounced as a political attack by his enemies.
I must challenge you today while I am here before you to produce so much as a scintilla of evidence to support the conclusion that we have ever condoned brutality, racially motivated or otherwise. To the contrary, Mr. Chairman, I have indicated today, as I have stated time and time again, that I will stand behind police officers when they are right and condemn them when they are wrong.
The community was nothing short of outraged. It's bad enough when anyone dies a questionable death, but when the facts clearly indicate that the person who died the death was a victim of unnecessary brutality. And when that is compounded by the fact that there are those who are seeking to, as we see it, cover up the truth, it makes for a condition of just being downright angry, outraged.
Among the rank-and-file transit police officers, including these officers not involved in the Stewart case, there is an apparent consensus that outsiders cannot appreciate the hazardous realities of their work.
You have to be at the scene. You have to know what's going on. Like I said, this police officer's out there, like myself and this officer here, you're out there. You got a minute to make a decision, maybe sometimes even less than that, to decide what you're going to do.
It's a question of individuals. There's no policy. There is no job-wide type thing. We're individuals. I mean, you know, even though we're police officers, we're people. We're different people, and we handle situations differently.
If you feel your life is in danger, then you're going to do what you want to do.